Hello and welcome to the Museum of Latin American Art 2021 Afro-Latinx Festival. My name is Kelly Reed, and on behalf of the rest of the staff at MOLA, I would like to thank you for joining us today. And as we learn about the diversity of Afro-Latinx experiences and dive into the history of the African legacy throughout Latin America. Before we begin, I would like to thank the event sponsor that made this 10-day event possible and accessible. Please enjoy this short message from our presenting sponsor, the Port of Long Beach.
Hola, I'm Mario Cordero. Welcome to the Museum of Latin American Art's 2021 Afro-Latinx Festival. We are pleased to sponsor this event that highlights the rich diversity in our community. Throughout our history, the Port of Long Beach has long been a supporter of education, the arts, and community efforts that amplify and deepen the understanding of our cultural tapestry and impact. Thank you for joining us today, and I hope you enjoy this exploration of the African influence in Latin America and Latinx culture. Felicidades, el Museo de Latin American Art. Muchas gracias por esta oportunidad.
MOLA receives additional support from the Robert Liu Foundation, the City of Long Beach, and the Art Council of Long Beach. We are excited to present today's speaker, Robert Liu Trujillo. Rob is an Oakland native, raised by student activists who watched lots of science fiction and took him to many demonstrations. Always drawing, Rob grew up to be an artist, falling in love with graffiti, fine art, illustration, murals, and children's books, in that order, sort of. Through storytelling, he's been able to scratch the surface of so many untold stories. Rob is the author and illustrator of Furqan's first flat top. He's a dad of a teen and a toddler. He loves ice cream and his wife, who laughs big and corrects his grammar every chance she gets. Down with the system and soggy French fries. We hope that you enjoy the program. Welcome, Robert.
Hey, what's up, everybody? Hi, my name is Robert Liu Trujillo, and I'm really excited to be here. So today, I just get a chance to read Furqan's first flat top to you and then answer some questions. But before I do that, I'll just say that I've been working as a children's book author and illustrator for about 7 or 8 years now, and I've been an artist pretty much my whole life, working in illustration, murals, public art, and I also worked as a teacher at once. But I will share the book so you can see it now. All right. All right, so this is the cover of the book, Furqan's first flat top, and it's a bilingual book, so you can read it in English and Spanish. El primer corte de mesita de Furqan is how I say it. So that's the cover. And then these are just the in papers. All right, so here we go. My name is Furqan Moreno. I'm 10 years old, and I've always had really curly hair. My mom and dad let me grow out my hair as long as I want to. I just have to comb it. But I decided that I want to cut my hair in a different way. So here in this room, you can see a little bit of Furqan's room, his toys. Daddy, I asked. Yes, baby, said Daddy. Remember the way that Marcus got his hair cut last year? Talking through toothpaste, Daddy mumbled. Yeah, that's called a flat top. I want to cut my hair like that. Can we do that today? I asked. So here's the part where if I'm reading to a bunch of students, I ask them, see what things you can notice, not only in this page and the rest of the book. For example, here, Dad has 2 different color socks on. My dad said that we could go, so we took the number 14 bus to Mr. Wallace's barbershop. It's the closest barbershop to our house. So here's Dad and Furqan on the bus. He's pointing to the signs on the wall before they get to the barbershop. Once we got inside, there's a whole bunch of people talking. There are things on the wall, the tables, and lots of people waiting to get their hair cut. Maybe they were waiting to get flat tops too. So if you notice here in this scene, Furqan is not in front of his dad or right beside him, but he's a little bit behind him. And that's because he's nervous. If any of you have ever gone to a barbershop or a peluqueria or a salon for the first time, it can be a little bit weird or nerve-wracking, and Furqan is still getting used to it. He's like, what is going to happen here? When it was my turn, I looked at all the stuff that Mr. Wallace had. He had all kinds of tools on his table. Some of them were for cutting hair, and some of them I couldn't tell what they were for. So if you look here, these are some of the tools that a barber might have, and every hair shop is different. They're not all the same. They might have different tools. So here you have clippers and scissors and different things for cleaning the tools, and you can see the barber has a picture there of someone. I want to get a flat top, I told Mr. Wallace, but I was still a little bit nervous about how to get it cut. So I asked him to show me some pictures of people's hairstyles. I pointed to the style that I liked, and as he began cutting, I started to imagine, how would it look? So this is common in a lot of barbershops. Still to this day, you'll see a chart or a poster with a bunch of different hairstyles if you don't know what you want already, and you can point to the one that you want. Either that or you can bring in your trusty cell phone or a digital device and show them a picture. Then I asked my dad, Daddy, what if my hair comes out flat like the drum that Baba Shola plays in dance class? Won't that look kind of weird? Furqan, don't we both love the way that your teacher's drum sounds? It will look cool, trust me, Daddy said, nodding his head. So here Furqan is starting to use his imagination. He's starting to imagine things that are flat. But what if my hair looks like the pancakes that we had for breakfast this morning, Dad? I pleaded. Ah, my dad said, waving his hand. Pancakes are great, and yes, they are flat, but your hair won't look or smell like pancakes, boy. This is the part where I usually get a lot of the elementary school students to laugh, because who wants to have hair that smells like pancakes? At Abuelita's house on Saturdays, we make tortillas flat with our hands, I said. Dad whispered, tortillas. Will my hair look flat like that? I asked. Tortillas are yummy, but no, it won't, my dad responded. Now, while you look at this page and see some of the details, see if you can put in the chat, if you have an abuela, where she's from. An abuela is a word in Spanish that means grandmother, or an abuelita is a really nice, gentle way of saying it. If you have an abuelita, you can put it in the chat and say where your abuelita's from. She could be from this country or a different neighborhood or a different state. In here, you can see some of the details. Like if you look here on the blinds, there's little symbols there of a fist. Daddy, remember the time that we tried to bake a cake? It started out all puffy and then it got flat. Will that happen to my hair? I asked. No, baby, it would look better than that. It would look real fresh, trust me. So if you look here, you see Furqan's face. Both Dad and Furqan look really excited here. Now you look here, not so excited. Okay, well, what if my hair looks flat like Cousin Mary's skateboard? I don't want anybody stepping on my head. I guess her skateboard is almost flat, but she's always moving and laughing just like you. Don't worry about it, said Daddy. So here's his Cousin Mary, and I got this name Cousin Mary from a John Coltrane song. That's one of his famous songs. If you've ever been to a skate park, you know some of these things that are there. The ramps, the half pipes, these tables for grinding the skateboard trucks on. Okay, well, you know how when you put them records on the machine, I asked? You mean the turntable, asked Daddy. Yeah, what if my head looks flat like a record? Your head would have to be pretty big to look like a record, boy. It will look just fine, Daddy reassured me. So here's Furqan and Dad listening to this very old ancient machine called a record player, where adults back in the day used to listen to music. I guess it's making a comeback now. Feel free to put things in the chat too while we're reading. You can ask your adult to do that. While I was thinking of flat stuff, the barber is almost finished cutting my hair. It felt kind of funny when I leaned forward or turned my head, and Mr. Wallace asked if I wanted designs like the Shakur twins. I told him, yeah. So he made all kinds of patterns. There's some little details in here as well. And then he said, your first flat top is done, Furqan. I looked in the mirror, smiled, and threw up my hand like I won a contest because it does look fresh. Now, this word fresh basically means something that is new or good. And it's important because if you look at Furqan's face here, he looks pretty happy. And sometimes when you leave the salon or the barbershop, you don't always feel happy with what they did to your hair. All right, so here's Furqan back at school. The next day, when I got to school, my friends were so surprised at my new haircut. Some kids even looked at me funny, but mostly everybody liked it. So you can look at the different facial expressions here. Say, look at this person here. What do you think they feel by their facial expression? This person here, I wonder what they are feeling. And then look at this person. Everyone has a different facial expression. And there's some designs in some of his hair. Now, here they're coming to the end of the day when Daddy picks up Furqan. I told my dad about my first day back at school, and he said, I told you it would look good, didn't I? I thanked my dad again for taking me to cut my hair different, and that is how I got my first flat top. So here's the end of the day. Furqan's giving Dad a hug, and if you have an adult with you, make sure you give them lots of hugs. And here's the different people. They're leaving school or waiting for a ride and playing. And that's the end of the book. In the back of it, there's a note in English and Spanish. And that's it. All right. Questions?
Hey, Robert. So I just reminded everyone that they can leave any questions for you in the chat box or in the Q&A function. I also have a couple of questions for you. But first of all, I want you to know that I can completely identify with the apprehension of going and getting a haircut like that, because as a child, having a lot of curly hair, I was turned away from beauty shops where people would tell my mom, like, I'm not touching that girl's hair. Like, there's too much. Yeah, wow. There's too much. And no, I don't know what to do with it. So I can completely identify.
That's rough. Yeah, while people are getting questions, I can show some sketches from the book as well, if that's needed.
Yeah, I guess we have one question. Do you have any other books similar to this? And I'm assuming that that means like exploring, I guess, the experiences of Afro-Latinx children or families?
I do. There's another book that I worked on by an author named Lauren Mayeno. She's a author here in the Bay Area, and she wrote a book called One of a Kind, or Único como yo. And it's about a little boy named Danny. It's basically based on her son, and it's a English and Spanish book. And it's about a boy who's Chino Latino. He's both Asian and Latino. And he wants to be a princess for the school parade. And it's about the mom supporting him through his decision and trying to help him basically navigate getting the right outfit for this school parade. And there are some challenging parts to it, but mostly it's a supportive story for queer and gender fluid children. Nice. And so I illustrated that, yeah.
And then I guess I have a question about how you started making books. So in particular with this book, like, what is your process? Did the illustrations come first, or the story, or how does that work for you?
Yeah, so I'm an illustrator first, author second. And during the course of making this story, what I did was several short stories where I would write a sentence or a paragraph of an idea, or I would do a drawing first and then vice versa. Drawing, then writing, or writing, then drawing. And this story, Furqan's First, happened to be one that people responded to the most. This was almost a decade ago. And then I decided to expand it, make a much larger story, a manuscript out of it, and then illustrated a whole book. And I did a Kickstarter to fundraise for it. And since then, when it was published in 2016, I'm amazed that people still like it and resonate with it. So that's how it came about.
Have you found it challenging to, you said you financed it using a Kickstarter. Have you found it challenging to approach, like, publishers with these types of stories? And if you have, what kind of responses have you gotten from them?
Yeah, it's very challenging. I mean, the world of publishing is very older, white, female, cisgendered, heterosexual. So there, it comes with a lot of gatekeeping and barriers that keep a lot of people of color out from the industry. Queer folks, disabled people. It is a very challenging industry to get into, it, which is one of the reasons why in 2015 there was an organization called We Need Diverse Books started, which was calling for basically not only inclusion of more stories written and illustrated by people of color, but more people of color within the ranks of some of these companies. And so since then, Lee and Low Books has published visual studies to show you kind of the landscape of how many books are actually by Latinx or Asian or Native or African American authors. And it gets better. It's improving, but it's still really, really overwhelmingly a white world of publishing, and we have a long way to go in terms of making kids books. That's part of the reason why I self-published it, because at the time when I pitched it to companies or to agents, the response wasn't what I was looking for. And so I decided I would have to show that it could be made, and that, the reason for making the story was important and valid. And not only Black folks, but Afro-Latinos could resonate with it, and people on either side of the spectrum or the various spectrum could learn from it being a bilingual book. So yeah, that's been my experience.
So you kind of mentioned this organization that calls for more representation. What other networks exist out there in case we have any aspiring illustrators or writers who come from underrepresented communities that they can tap into maybe to find that support, whether it's like just financial or just like emotional or creative?
Sure. So BAPA, which is in the Bay Area, that's something called the Bay Area Independent Book Publishing Association. And I feel like there are several groups like that throughout the US. And there's something that's called the IBPA, the Independent Book Publishing Association. And so through them, you can find a lot of workshops that are about kind of the mechanics of, what goes into making a book and making it from idea, from concept to actual book in your hand. When it comes to finding groups that are specifically supportive for queer folks or people of color or Black people, there are lots of writers groups. And I would say start with your local chapter. So like I would look on Facebook for people, like basically type in the type of groups that you're looking for. And there are small groups there where you can kind of interact with people. When all this COVID thing is died down a little bit, it is really helpful to go to in-person book festivals, especially if it's a specific Latinx one or a specific Black festival, and meet people. And, I've found the best way to really gain control of your story and to really improve and get better is to meet people, build community with them, share your story, listen to theirs. And that has been very helpful for me in terms of getting the book out there.
Yeah, and that's how I actually came across your work, was your participation in our Latino Comics Expo festival
Right.
that we had this year. Yeah, and I know that there's also the Soul.
Yep. Soul
Expo. Yeah, the conference, which is Black and Brown, also writers as well.
Yep. Perfect example. Yep. Both of those are really good events to go to. Yep.
Yeah, and so I know we always get, when we organize events like the Latino Comics Expo or our Afro-Latinx festival, which I'm really pleased now we could extend to 10 days as opposed to 1 day, because I feel like we'll get more variety of voices and people that we might not have been able to connect with in the past. And we always get people really that are incredibly pleased with the fact that they are seeing themselves represented in literature and in images. I know growing up, that wasn't the case for me. I kind of want to maybe talk about, or if you can give us or show us some images. I've been following you on Instagram, and I've seen your Black is Beautiful sort of image campaign. And would you mind talking a little bit about that and sharing some of those really lovely pictures?
Sure. While I'm looking up the picture, I'll just talk about the introduction to it. So I want to say 2015, somewhere around there, I met a guy named Joel Christian Gill, and he was doing a project called The Talented Tenth, which is illustrated comics around people, Black people specifically, who are unsung or people that you don't hear often enough about. And that really inspired me to want to do something, not necessarily a comic, because I wasn't skilled enough yet to do that, but to make like an art challenge. At the same time, there's an illustrator by the name of Jake Parker who has done something called Inktober, which has since, blown up to a worldwide phenomenon. And using both of those things, I decided to do an art challenge where I basically try to draw unsung Black people for the month. So I'll pull up this woman that I just did. Let me see if I can find the picture real quick. Her name is Leola King. And let me just share the screen again so you can see. Okay, so if you can see that, Leola King, she was a Black woman that came from, actually she was born in Native American territory in Oklahoma, and she came to Los Angeles to with her family, and was in the nightlife and working and all that stuff. And then she moved to the Bay Area to basically help her dad run a barbecue restaurant. And it was so successful that she decided to start her own in San Francisco. And to make a long story short, in San Francisco, in the Fillmore district, it's a historically Black neighborhood where my great uncle moved to from the South, like so many Black folks during the World War II time. And she, like so many other people, had to either was kicked out or had to leave her home or business because they were using a new law under the Redevelopment Agency to basically take land from Black folks. They called it urban renewal. There's so many names for it, but it's like an ongoing history of Black and people of color throughout the US having their neighborhoods taken over, whether it be through actual laws or gentrification or, historically with the theft of Native American land. So it's been, that particular person really stuck out to me because she fought 3 times and had her business taken away 3 times. And each time she was able to reestablish herself, and she kept on fighting until the day she passed away. So that's just one of so many different people.
Can you tell me maybe about a couple more people because this is an individual that I've never heard of.
Yeah. So that was the point, was to try and paint some people that, I had never heard of her until just recently. So I'll pull up an example where you can see a bunch of different people that I've illustrated. So another one that's from LA that a lot of people in hip hop don't know about is called Uncle Jam's Army. Uncle Jam's Army was basically a group of DJs that they got together and started throwing huge parties in Los Angeles. And through their ranks, they did so much to foster the hip hop community in LA. And let me see if I can share the screen so you can see some of these other ones. And then you can tell me which ones you want to check out. All right, so here are some of the other ones that I've illustrated. A lot of people in the music world, sometimes athletes, martial artists, activists, filmmakers, people from the queer community. If any of these stick out to you, I'll just talk about one of them briefly. Oh, I can't hear you. Your mic is off.
Thanks. How about the individual kind of in the middle holding up? It looks like it might be a woman, and right below that one.
This one? That one?
Yes, that one.
Okay. So this one is Ruth Carter. So what I illustrated right here is she is a costume designer, and she's been working in the business for, I want to say, over 30 years. She started doing a lot of work for Spike Lee. So some of his earlier films like Do the Right Thing, Mo Better Blues, Malcolm X. Her job as a costume designer is to really, if it's a fantastical film, like if you see the outfit that she's wearing here, the outfit rather that she's working on, it's from Black Panther, and she was the costume designer for that film. And for some of the older pieces like Malcolm X, for example, her job is to go and find, eyeglasses or the right tie or the right type of shoes or the right suit that fits that time period of the 50s or the 60s. And she's just a really incredible artist. Netflix has a series where she's one of the artists that they feature, but she's an incredible artist who, makes films look real. So that way, when you're watching it, you don't feel like it's a costume. You just feel like that's who that person is.
And we do have a question that showed up in the Q&A from one of our attendees. They're really impressed with the series and was wondering how much research goes into identifying these individuals to bring their stories to life through your illustrations.
It depends. I would say that because it's an art challenge and I'm trying to do several illustrations in the month of February, I try to do this for Women's History Month and Asian American History Month as well. And even during Inktober, I try to draw mostly people from the Latinx community. It ranges. Sometimes I'll do it just in one day. I'll see what I can find, and I'll look at a video. I'll listen to an interview. I'll read an article. If when libraries were open, I would actually go to the library and get a book and see if I can find something there. It can be just in one day, and then sometimes, like this one, for example, that's on the screen, it can last much longer. So this is a contract buyers league. This is having to do with land again. This is a group of Black folks in Chicago who organized against having their houses taken away.
I have a question actually about, as an artist also, about the color palette that you chose. It seems like there's like a warm tone and then a cooler blue. How did you decide to use those colors for this series?
I don't remember the exact painting that I saw, but I think it was another artwork that I saw. And I happen to like using a limited color palette because it's an art challenge and you have to do so many during the month. It helps to not dwell on, oh, which color am I going to use? It's like, okay, I'll just limit myself to these two colors. So that way I can make it a little bit faster. So that's why I chose the blue and the kind of red or pinkish color.
It looks like you work mainly in like watercolor. I noticed that it's like very sort of soft illustrations.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so for that one, it's a mixture of mostly watercolor and then a little bit of colored pencil.
Nice. I am impressed. I can't watercolor to save my life. It's like one of the hardest things. That and pastels. I'm like, I don't know how to do.
Oh yeah, I don't mess with pastels.
No.
Too messy.
Yeah, I guess I just have a couple more questions for you. People always are curious as to artist inspirations. So within both the art and I guess literary world, as well as beyond it, because I know that art inspirations often come from more everyday experiences or memories or connections that we have, with other types of things. Can you talk a little bit about what inspires you?
Yeah, so I would say family history is a big one. So my mom's Black, my dad's Korean, Mexican, and Apache Indian. And with that family history, I've always grown up with, a very, not only mixed group of family members, but mixed group of friends. And it has made me want to know more about my family history, identity, and things like that. So that's a huge one. I grew up as a kid who was really into graffiti art as a teenager. And so being immersed in that world, there's a lot of discipline and practice that comes into, being well at what you do, as it would be with any art. But so much so that oftentimes like people will not share stuff, whether it be in a sketchbook or on a wall, unless they've really, really polished it. And I'm still, trying to get better as an artist. But I think family history, the graffiti, like the discipline of that has helped me and kind of carried me through up into being, a muralist or illustrator or working in kids' books. And ethnic studies is a huge inspiration for me. I was able to take some ethnic studies classes in high school, both Raza and African American studies. And it was just really empowering to know these things that I'd never heard about before. And I went to San Francisco State, which also had ethnic studies. And those things have been very, very inspirational for me.
Fun fact, I also went to San Francisco State for a year.
No way.
And yeah, in ethnic studies.
Awesome.
Yeah, I dropped out to pursue an MFA. Okay. Yeah, it was like, but yeah, totally. I guess I just have one more question for you. So I know myself growing up as my mom's from Peru, my dad's from Mexico. And so I always felt kind of like I was neither here or there. And I always just felt like I was, when people say, then they'd be like, oh, you're half this or half that. And it's like never the whole. And I never really felt like empowered in my identity until someone once told me, like, you can never be half of anything, like never describe yourself as half this and half that. Like, you are Mexican Peruvian and that's your identity. I'm wondering if you ever had sort of that experience, or if you have any, because I know like it feels like you really do embrace all of your background, right? Or if you have any kind of words of advice for young people who are maybe growing up in that in-between space.
Yeah, I would say, although I may be confident with it now, I haven't always been that way. There, as I said, when I took those classes in high school, that really helped me and embrace the Mexican side of my family, which I grew up more with the African American side. So I feel like it's a process, and to allow yourself to grow with it and to seek out knowledge and new things as it comes to you. But definitely be proud of who you are if you can, and if you cannot be proud just yet, like I said, it's a process, and to just try to grow with it and be open to learning more and to discovering more about who you are. I think coming from different backgrounds, you don't even have to be like Latino and Black. You could just be a Black person who's from Senegal and a Black person who's from Georgia. Like, there are multitudes within every single identity, and just being open to exploring it, I think, is really helpful. I think also surrounding yourself with people who are loving and open to, are proud of who you are and are open to sharing things with you. I find when people are, talking crap about you or like being negative, like, it's best to dip and get away from those people and like try to surround yourself with more loving and supporting folks.
So I know I said that was the last question, but actually, just to wrap it up, I just have a question about what can folks look forward to next from what you're creating. If you wanted to talk about any upcoming projects or drop any links for work that you're doing so people can go out and look for your work or buy it.
Yeah, so I just finished working on a book called Alejandria Fights Back, or La Lucha de Alejandria. And that is a new picture book written by Leticia Hernandez, Linares, and the Rise Home Stories Project. This is a group of people who, they're making a bunch of multimedia things around home and land and gentrification and things like that. So that book will be coming out this year. And that's also a bilingual picture book. So that's one. I'm working on a picture book that's about a father and son, African-American father and son, who, the father gets sick and the son suggests that they go get fresh juice, vegetables and fruits, and they make their own juice to kind of promote good health. That one will be out next year. And yeah, I'm always working on new stuff. So those are the ones that I can talk about. But I would just say follow my website and look on whatever social media, and I'll put that in the chat.
Thank you, Robert. So yeah, if you didn't catch that, you can find Robert's contact info in the chat. He's going to place it in there. Also, you can find it on the MOLA page. I think we put in a link also if you wanted to buy the book directly from Robert, I think, which is always helpful. Put money back into the pocket of the artist instead of going through a third party. So thank you so much, Robert. It was nice to connect with you. We're really excited about your participation in our program. And I look forward to seeing what happens next.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me. I really enjoyed what I've seen so far of the festival, and can't wait to actually get to the Mola in Long Beach.
So thank you, folks, for joining us. We hope you enjoyed the storytelling. We hope you enjoyed learning more about Robert's experiences. And yeah, please check out the programming listing that we have on www.mola.org. And we hope to see you in any of our future events. We miss